But the truth is they'll look at it and they'll go, well, don't we want to actually grab billions of dollars of stuff that's going to, I'm going to grab 5 or 10% of all the money in the world forever that moves at the speed of light, that's in cyberspace that no one could steal from me. Why wouldn't you? I mean, I think they're smarter than us and they're faster than us. So yeah, Bitcoin will be the reserve currency of cyberspace, or let me restate that before I get myself in trouble. It's the reserve capital of cyberspace. If you're going to store your capital asset, and as the AIs accumulate it, they're just going to drive the price through the roof. And Bitcoin is the emerging world reserve capital network. The most intelligent thing you can do is just sell the gold, buy Bitcoin. It's a free trade. Gold was a good idea in the 19th century. No one thinks gold is going to be the capital network of the 21st century. So just trade the gold for Bitcoin. You'll have 25% of the Bitcoin network. You'll make $100 trillion on the trade. If you don't want to trade the gold, just issue currency. It's a little bit of money. It's free. Print money. Buy 25% of the Bitcoin network. And if you're a person, the smart thing to do is front run the AIs. They're not going to steal it from you. They can't steal it. They're just going to trade you pesos and rubles and real estate or whatever else services you want for your Bitcoin, and they're going to keep it because why wouldn't you? It's the smart thing to do. And so if you were an AI, you wouldn't invest in gold or silver or glass beads or copper tokens, and you wouldn't buy securities and you wouldn't buy real estate, right? For not because it's hard to buy it, but by the way, it is hard to buy it. They'll be blocked from the 20th century economy. No one's going to sell the AI the house and they can't trade bonds, right? So they'll be blocked from the 20th century economy. They won't take it. They will adopt it, right? You're going to have billions of AIs and they can't get bank accounts, right? And by the way, the AIs are smarter than us. But what I would say to them is the smart thing to do is think about money as bifurcated into currency and capital. And the US dollar is destined to be the world's reserve currency. And the smart thing to do is just normalize stable coins or digital currency and let banks and corporations issue US dollar stable coin like Tether. And then that market will go from 150 billion to 10 trillion. And the US dollar will become the medium of exchange in North Korea, South Korea, Cuba, China, Russia, Africa, South America, and probably most of Europe. In a communist or socialist state in Venezuela and North Korea and Cuba, they expropriate property. If a government becomes communist or socialist, then they're going to take your property, I suppose. So it's an existential threat. So I'm willing to accept the existential risk of the expropriation of my property if the United States goes full on communist. But you can expect that I will agitate in favor of capitalism between now and then, and I'm an optimist. So I don't dismiss the presence of evil in the world. North Korea, Cuba, Venezuela, there is evil. It did happen. I just happen to believe that at the end of the day, Bitcoin is a force of good, and it's going to bring people back from the brink, and it's going to remind them that maybe they should embrace technology and freedom and capitalism and property rights and all of those things that made America great. Literally, if you want the dollar to become the world reserve currency and move between 8 billion people the speed of light on Android phones, it's easy to do. Just normalize a digital currency with a digital assets framework. You will have $10 trillion of demand for treasury bills to back it. And then I would say, acknowledge that the world capital network right now is real estate and equity. And if you talk to any billionaire, no one is bragging about holding all of their wealth in cash or bonds. It's real estate, it's equity. When the Chinese billionaires, the Russian billionaires, the Europeans, when they all basically start buying Bitcoin, the big winner will be the United States. It's not more complicated than you can have Louisiana, California, and Alaska for free by writing a little paper check, or sell the past, sell the stupid. Gold is going to, by the way, gold is going the way of silver, which went the way of glass beads, which will go the way of copper tokens, which goes the way of the giant stone coin of the Yap people. It's going to be demonetized because you can't zap $1 billion of gold from an Android phone to an iPhone in one split second. It's not complicated. Everybody's going to figure it out. If I came to you and said, I'll give you $650 million, it's 75 basis points, go invest in something. Can you come up with an idea for something to invest in that yields more than 1%? Probably. If you can't, you're not in business, right? Probably you can. So we did that and Bitcoin rallied again. And all of a sudden we were able to raise $1 billion for zero. Okay. And then we realized we might as well take another 500 million. And we took a $500 million loan at percent. And we thought Bitcoin's going up 60. We'll borrow at 6. We'll loan at 60. We'll capture 54. And it moved around. And then at some point, some banker called me and said, you can do this ATM where you can actually sell equity in the market. I said, you're kidding me. Really? That's possible? And actually, the greatest innovation of the past 30 years, guys, in the capital markets is the ATM shelf registration of equity, because it allows an issuer to sell shares pari passu to an investor. You're basically on the same footing as anybody else. It's a fair thing. And for my entire career, if we wanted to sell $100 million of equity, our stock would get hammered down 20. And so it felt pretty good to not get hammered 20% and be able to sell into the market whenever you want. Once we constructed that model, we just said, look, we're going to issue $21 billion of equity, and we're going to issue $21 billion of fixed income, whether it's convertible bonds or preferred shares or corporate bonds. And we're going to do the fixed income to stay levered. We're going to do the equity when it's at a massive premium to the underlying assets to capture the yield and to delever. If you want to get behind us on, that's the plan. We put it out there. The next day, stock trades up. We outperform every Magnificent Seven company. We outperform Bitcoin. We outperform every Bitcoin company. Where we are today is from desperation to opportunistic to strategic to identity. At this point, we're a Bitcoin treasury company. I'm on a mission. My mission is I'd like to see the entire world recapitalize on Bitcoin. Every company, every family, every individual, every government. I think it's an economic protocol for prosperity. I think it's as important as English or fire or electricity or steel. I just think it's good technology. It's a good idea. We're reaching the fun stage. The next 4 years, I think, are fun. We get to do a lot of interesting things to help people. Yeah, I think the middle of 2020, we're running a $500 million business with $500 million in cash, generating $75 million in cash flow a year, growing 0 to 5%, competing against Microsoft. It's hit. Our stock has 0 options, $2 million of liquidity a day. The options are worthless. The stock is worthless. We have no investor interest. We're stuck in a competitive trap. There's no way to crawl out of the competitive trap. We've got $500 million in cash generating 4% interest, and all of a sudden Jerome Powell cranks that down to 0% interest. And then everybody's locked in their home, and I'm staring at, and then I watch all the Magnificent Seven stocks double. And then you realize that if you're sitting there, all your capital is going to be siphoned off by the Magnificent Seven. All your human capital is going to be siphoned off by the Magnificent Seven, right? Even if you have a good product, it won't be a good product in 5 years once all your engineers quit. And so we're stuck in a trap. So at that point, you have 3 choices. You have a fast death. Just sell the company. And a lot of people do. 99%. I had 100 competitors, guys. 99 of them, or actually all 100 of them, sold themselves. You just exit. Or it's slow death. I have my $5 million. I'm just going to start to pay all my employees massive cash bonuses to not quit, retention bonuses. But you're just going to go through the cash at some point. You're not going to be able to get out of your hole. You're going to linger on as a zombie. Or you take a risk. And the risk is a transformational acquisition. It's when you buy VMware. It's like, can you buy a company that's growing 20 to 40% a year, that's a monster world beater company? And can you buy it for cash or buy it for stock? And maybe you have a new lease on life. So if you track the liquidity in the options market and in the equity market, there was a major shift in Q1 and early Q2 where a lot of the volatility in the options traders and equity traders, they basically hopped off a dozen Bitcoin mining companies onto MicroStrategy because the Bitcoin miners were going to the halving where their revenues get cut in half. So when that happened, our options interest exploded and we became the #1 options market. When the SEC approved the ETFs, they didn't approve options. And so I looked at option 1, I looked at option 2, and I thought, is there some monster company we can buy with our $500 million in cash? Because right now it's a liability. And obviously I couldn't find one, but then I looked at Bitcoin and I thought, Bitcoin looks like Facebook for money. It looks like the global monetary network. It looks like the dominant. It looks like the Google or the Facebook. And so I'm like, what's the big tech monster network for money? Bitcoin looked like that for me. So I thought, hey, maybe I can do a $500 million acquisition. I buy 500 million. What if you could buy a company growing 60% a year at 1 times revenue with cash that you don't need? That was the idea. And it was out of frustration and desperation, but it was a strategic Hail Mary because your choice is just sell the company, give up. And the company would have been sold for $6 a share in enterprise value. Okay, $6 a share after 30 years of life. So we do that. We get to the 500 million. Bitcoin rallies, the stock doubles, the stock triples. Now we just have an opportunistic run. We discover the convertible bond market and they want to give us 650 million in cash pretty much for free. And so now we hit upon this new stage where we realize we have a commodity that returns more than the S&P index that we can buy by selling our stock. So if you're an investor and I give you a return higher than the S&P, how much capital are you going to give me? Infinite. So we started doing that. We sold $1 billion of that. And the short of it is we went from a $500 million investment to $10 billion of capital raised on the stock. It went up by a factor of 10 or 20. And then we got to 2024, and 2024 was by the way, I skipped the crypto winter where everything crashes from 66,000 to 16,000, but this is a half-hour podcast. So I'll just say it was a roller coaster. We went up to 66, down to 40, up to 66, down to 16, back. And that's all very colorful. Okay, so today our options market is like $95 billion. Our options market is the same size as our market cap. And then we discovered that the real strategic opportunity we had was we can construct a balance sheet of permanent capital with leverage. And when you take coin and make it 100% of your stock, you're going to trade if Bitcoin is trading with a 60 vol, you're going to trade with a 75 vol just because of the uncertainty of what the management team is going to do. Like I have the option to sell equity or not sell equity, or we might do something or not do something. I have the option to do debt or not do debt. That option is going to move you from 60 vol to 70 or 80 vol. Then if you actually execute the option by selling equity at a premium or by issuing convertible bonds, you move to 90 or 100 vol. So all of a sudden, we had an equity trading with 100. I think today is 20 vol, basically double Bitcoin equity. And now here's the big idea, right? The S&P is 15 ARR, 15 vol. Bitcoin is 60 ARR, 60 vol. It has been that way for 4 years. We take a company with permanent capital and we create something which is 100 or 20 vol, 100 to 120 ARR. Okay, now that attracts all the options traders, all the arbitrageurs, all the Bitcoin maximalists. It becomes hot money. If you hold a dollar bill for 30 days, you're getting SOFR at 30. You're getting 480 basis points or something like that. If you hold $1 million with the S&P index for 30 days, you can get like 50% interest by selling the 30-day calls at the market. If you hold coin IBIT for 30 days, you couldn't sell the options until just recently, but now you can sell them and generate about 100% interest. If you sell the MicroStrategy call option at the market, it's 220% interest rate. Okay, just to hold the share. And all of a sudden, what we've done is we've created a levered flywheel on top of a product which is already 4x as volatile and 4x as performant as the S&P. The result is our liquidity explodes, our options interest explode, and we do a convert bond in Q1. A week later, we do another convert bond. That's the first time in history anybody ever did 2 convert bonds back to back, 2 consecutive weeks. Then we do another one in Q2. Then we do another one in Q3. Then we do $1 billion of ATM in Q3. And then we start to get into a groove and we realize that at the end of the day, the market's going to rally around some leader. And you're either going to lead in a decisive way, or you're going to sneak around and apologetically be opportunistic, or you're going to hide and wait. And so we just decided we're going to lead. John D. Rockefeller decided to roll up the entire petrochemical industry, and he bought out all of his competitors, all of his customers, all of his vendors. And first he did it for cash. And they would say, okay, well, pay me this. He'd go to the bank, he'd borrow the money, and he'd give them the cash. And at some point, people in the industry said, Standard Oil stock is worth more money than the cash. And he just started issuing the stock. And Henry Flagler, of course, built Florida with Standard Oil stock. And so there's this point in the market where the market decides it trusts you and it wants to rally behind you. And we got to the point in October 30th and we just said, look, we're going to put the question to our shareholders. Do you want us to basically build this business or not? And after 40 consecutive Bitcoin purchases, after laying the foundation of a Bitcoin development company, after actually rolling out the KPI of BTC yield, which is, we just sold $1 billion of equity. It was backed by 350 million in Bitcoin. We bought back the $1 billion in Bitcoin. We captured 650 million in the arbitrage. That works out to 4%. That 4% is like a Bitcoin dividend to the shareholders, but we're going to keep it on the balance sheet, roll it forward and reinvest it.